Okay, so I know right now we're in the How to Get Lean series, and I'm taking you with me on my journey to getting a little bit leaner. We call it a cut. If you follow anyone on YouTube or Instagram or any basically fitness professional out there, you probably hear about when you're trying to get leaner, you're in a cut. And then when you're trying to maintain weight, you're in maintenance. If you're trying to gain weight and put on more muscle, you're in a bulk. And I was going to be doing a cut, and then I decided I wasn't ready for it. I didn't need it yet. I had some other things I was doing. However, I feel like this is the time of the year, beginning of the year, where most people are trying to make some pretty dramatic changes in their health and fitness, whether that be they are trying to get leaner or they're just trying to get into a routine of some type of health and fitness regimen that works for them, their life, their goals, or they're getting ready for spring break, or possibly thinking about summer already. So I thought, why not just kind of take you on a journey with how I do coach women when they are doing their cuts, some things they think about, some considerations I have them make, some hiccups or bumps in the roads they might cross. And then hopefully, if you are someone right now who is working towards feeling and looking like a better version of yourself, these tips and tricks might help you out. So today, we will cover the scale and scale fluctuations. Are you a victim to the scale? Do you have an emotional attachment to the scale? Do you even use the scale? I want to break it down, like why you can use it as a really good tool for feedback, how you can look at it from a different lens and look at it for objective data, not for an emotional response, and then how you look at your week as a big picture with the scale to make sure you're actually trending in the right direction to become leaner. So let's do it. And then let me know in the comments below, like if you are enjoying this series, what other questions do you have around dieting? Diet just means the consumption of all the food you eat in a day. Right now, you would be eating less than you burn in a day to actually get leaner. But I know there's so much conflicting information out there. Like, should I intermittent fast to get leaner? Should I do keto? Should I do no carb? Should I do high carb? Should I do all cardio? And let me tell you, it's actually way easier than all the information out there. And so I want to make it as easy as I can to distill that information to you. But I'd love to know from you guys and from everyone that's watching, like, what are your thoughts around it? What are your beliefs? How do you go into a season of life where you're trying to maybe lose weight or build some muscle with a good mindset that's going to put you in a resourceful state to get you the results you want? So let's paint the picture. You started making some food changes. Maybe you're eating more protein. Maybe you've implemented a meal prep routine. Maybe you decided, hey, you know what? It's not that I can't have my higher calorie cereal and pancakes and high fat chips and carb stuff that you normally eat, but you're like, right now I'm just gonna put that on the shelf. It's kind of like just off limits because you know that those foods can just light up the pleasure zone. Sometimes we end up eating too much of them, or maybe they're just way higher calorie than what your plan allows that you're on right now to lose weight. So you're making all these changes. You're eating more veggies. You're eating more fruit. You're more aware when you go out in social environments. Maybe you're not having 5 drinks. You're having 2 drinks. Maybe you're looking at menus in advance and you're figuring out what trade-offs you could make with your order to keep your calories in check, but still enjoy the experience of being with others. You're doing all these things, and all of a sudden you step on the scale one morning and you're like 3 pounds up. And you're like,
what the hell? I just gained 3 pounds overnight?
Rest assured, you did not. And knowledge is power in this situation. Let's look at this realistically as to what's happening. And when you start to understand where fluctuations come from, you can remove the emotion from the scale and you can look at it logically. And then the best thing you can do is reap the benefits of continually falling in love with the process of being healthy and doing the behaviors that are going to best serve you to get there, rather than being reactive and jumping ship as soon as you see a fluctuation and be like, well, I walked 10,000 steps yesterday, I did a workout, I meditated, I did all these things, I ate all single ingredient foods and the scale went up, so screw it, it's not working. And it's like, well, hey, actually, let's reframe that. Let's look at it as like, wow, I feel so thankful and so grateful that I have the opportunity to even go down this road to get leaner, to get healthier, right? What a gift that is. And this body that I'm in is truly the one thing that I own. And it's such a gift to be able to decide how I want to move it and how I want to feed it and how I want to fuel my brain, rather than getting hung up on oh, the scale went up, so, I'm done with it. I know it happened to you because it's happened to me many times. So let's start with number 1. why might you be having a scale fluctuation? There are certain foods that can cause water retention responses on the scale. All right, so maybe you go out to a restaurant and maybe you don't eat out that often. Well, a restaurant has to salt your food in a really delicious way to make it taste good. Maybe you don't use that amount at home. Maybe they're using different oils to cook with that you don't use at home. Maybe you order a food you don't eat as often at home. You might be having some type of inflammatory response to that food, which just will materialize as a bump up on the scale or water weight. This can also happen at home. Like for example, for me, if I eat ground beef or a cruciferous vegetable like Brussels sprouts, like broccoli, cauliflower, I know going into it, I'm gonna have a spike on the scale. It doesn't mean I'm gaining body fat. My body is just trying to figure out how to digest and absorb that. So it's having some type of inflammatory response to it. So pay attention. If you're eating similar foods day to day, which we always recommend when you're trying to get leaner because you have more control over how much you eat, and then you can choose foods that keep you full, that keep you energized, that are palatable, that you enjoy eating, it's easier to know when you add other stuff in what causes those spikes. And so then when it does happen, you can be like, oh, I'm eating for fat loss right now, and all I had was broccoli, like 50 calories of it. Do you really think if the scale goes up three pounds that you ate enough calories to warrant 3 pounds of body fat? Because remember, 1 pound of body fat, to lose that or gain that is 3,500 calories across the week. So that would mean you would have to be eating at an amount that keeps you at the same weight. You'd have to eat 500 calories above that every day for 7 days to actually warrant 1 pound of fat. But you're already eating less because you're trying to get leaner. So we know that's not the case. So maybe it was a response to food. All right, let's go into number 2, maybe you slept really poor. Maybe you are a mom and your kids were up like 3 times waking you up. Maybe you drank some alcohol that night and you didn't sleep really well. Maybe you had some interrupted sleep. Maybe you stayed up late because you're in busy work season and you only got 4 to 5 hours. You have to remember that the best part of recovery comes during your sleep. That's when all your hormones are regulating. That's when we're losing body fat. That's when like all the good stuff is happening. When our appetite hormone regulates, when our fullness hormone regulates. And so if you're not sleeping, your body's not getting all the way into that mode where it's digesting and resting. And so you might see your weight as elevated on the scale. All that means is that you probably had a poor night's sleep and you just haven't had enough of a chance to actually digest your food. It's still sitting in your stomach. Or maybe you ate late. Maybe you got home and you were with activities with kids for, I don't know, till 9 p.m. and you didn't eat dinner till 9:30 and you got on the scale at 5 a.m. Think about that time span of when your last meal was to when you weighed in. Now, is there anything wrong with eating that late? No, that's another myth. You can eat as late as you want as long as your amount you're consuming is less than what you're burning in a day. You're still losing fat. So that spike on the scale can just mean you haven't digested all your food yet or you had a poor night's sleep. Number 3, speaking of not digesting your food, and I know we probably don't want to talk about this, but maybe you haven't gone to the bathroom yet, right? Did you ever think about that? And so sometimes if our food hasn't come out yet, we might look like we weigh more on the scale. Because here's what you have to remember. The scale does not know anything about you. It doesn't know if you had a bad night's sleep. It doesn't know if you ate a food that is causing some bloating and water retention. It does not know if you're sore from a workout. It does not know if you haven't gone to the bathroom. All it knows is the whole makeup of your body on that morning. From your skeletal mass, to your lean mass, to your fat mass, to your organs, to your food not being digested. That's all it knows. And if you think about that, like that's all that machine knows. There's no emotion attached to it anymore. So number 3, maybe you just haven't digested your food. Okay. Number 4, a workout, right? We're trying to get healthy. We're trying to get fit. You're most likely probably adding in working out. Especially if you haven't done it before, you might be experiencing some soreness from it. And remember, any inflammation that you have in your body might show up as a spike on the scale. It's just water retention, but it soon will pass. Because when we have a spike in your stress hormone, your cortisol, that can kind of mimic water retention, and then all of a sudden when you get less stressed, it comes back down. So maybe think about it. If you wake up and you're really sore, maybe that's all it is that's going on with the scale. That brings me to my last one. stress. There is good stress and there's not so good stress. A good stress is maybe doing a workout or eating foods that are single ingredient foods might have a little bit of an inflammatory response on you. Maybe it's getting a new job. Maybe it's having a new baby. But all of these can create good stress, but it's still some stress on the body. And then there's poor stress, right? Where that is emotional stress and mental stress and how you can take care of being a full-time working person, possibly a mom, and dealing with taking care of your household or whatever it is. Maybe it's that emotional stress. Maybe you're taking care of a loved one that's sick. Maybe you have sick kids at home. Maybe you're sick yourself. All of these are stresses on the body. There are physical stresses and there are emotional stresses. And we talked about some physical stresses, right? Where that could be food related, that could be workout related, that could be sleep related. But mental and emotional stress is just as powerful for when you might see some weird things going on in the scale, just as a physical stress is. And so there were like a couple nights, I guess it was more around like Christmas time, and we had company with us for 10 days and it was beautiful and I loved it and we had a great time. But I, was feeling a little stressed because I didn't have the comfort of my own home being by myself. And then I was taking care of making meals for other people. And then I was showing them around the hill country of Texas. And so there was a lot more socializing and a lot more drinks. Paul breaks his ankle on Christmas Eve. We're in the emergency room till 10:30 p.m. while his cousin from Denmark stays at the house with the boys, right? So there was a lot of moving parts going on. And so I was just kind of feeling that. Like, I'm really good now at recognizing when my stress is getting a little bit too high and how to prioritize it. The stress call is for another video. However, my weight just kind of kept going boop, 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 but I knew how much I was eating and I was being mindful of that. Now, I wasn't like tracking my food, but I also wasn't really eating that much different from what I normally do besides like a couple different holiday foods. And so when I saw the scale go up like 5 pounds, I'm like, oh, that's just my emotional stress. If you manage it and you think about what's in your control and what's not in your control, what is in your control is moving your body and eating good foods and getting good sleep and staying hydrated and moving more in a day. What's not in your control sometimes is external factors from the world and the stresses those put on you. But if you can manage what you can, that can kind of help like reduce that water weight. And so that's the next one. Stress. You have to know that that does play an impact on how the scale fluctuates. So we talked about all the different ways that the scale can fluctuate. So how do you look at it realistically? Oh, wait a minute. If you're a female, I forgot the most important one, your cycle, which I have done a whole, cycle time of the month call that you can go watch that video and you can kind of see like why we have fluctuations and what you can best do to prepare yourself for them and to manage them. But that's another one. It is normal when your estrogen and your progesterone are switching, right? Your progesterone was raising and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you did not conceive. So your progesterone starts to come back down and then estrogen takes over and you go into the new luteal phase, whatever it is. That causes bloating, which causes a water weight response. Just remember, like it's not fat gain on your cycle. If you actually watch your trends over time, you'll just notice like, oh, before I get my period or during my period or after my period, this is when I see a spike. Oh, it's always 2 to 3 pounds. There's no reacting anymore. What we need to do is get you out of reacting from the scale and really going into it with mindfulness and awareness of your behaviors that could be causing the fluctuations. Or just don't even care. If you know the process that works for you, where you feel the most healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally, you just keep doing that process over and over again, and you will have the result. So we always say, fall in love with the process. The scale is just one tool that can give you great feedback and give you trends over time in terms of data to make sure you're moving in the right direction. So how do you know if you're moving in the right direction? Well, we actually recommend all of our lady clients they take their weight every day because there should be no emotion attached to it. It should mean nothing, right? It is literally just there for us to kind of get a feedback of how their body responds in different environments or with different stressors and how consistent their behavior is. So for example, what I mean by that, if we're trying to get people to eat a certain amount to warrant a fat loss response, but one day they eat 2,200 calories and then they eat 800 calories and then they eat 1,500 calories, it's interesting because the scale will mimic that behavior, that kind of sporadic, not consistent behavior. So what we can do is be like, hey, if you start to see more flatline numbers, you're probably more consistent with your behavior. You have more structure in your day. You're thinking ahead, you're planning, and you understand how to be flexible within that. And so you can use a daily weight as a feedback as to how your body responds, but then only track your weekly average. So we only look at how much did you lose in a weekly average, because your weight's gonna fluctuate every day. That's the way it is. And if you can get it out of your head that you're gonna try to get it flatlined or get it to go down every single day, that's gonna be a battle you're gonna lose, because mentally you are gonna get fatigued by that, and psychologically you will get obsessed with that, and then you might beat yourself up for when you don't see a loss or you see a 2-pound spike. And so look at it as a weekly average and compare your weekly average. And if it is trending down and you are eating in an amount to warrant your fat loss and you're doing that consistently, if it goes down a 0.5 pound plus a week, you're losing body fat. And so when you look at it that way, there is no more emotion. There's just feedback. We say there is no failure. There is only feedback. So the scale isn't meant to make you feel like a failure. It's there to give you feedback. And so when you're in this cut right now and you're working to get leaner and you are crushing it, and all of a sudden you have that spike on the scale, forget about it. Go back and use it as feedback as to your behaviors and what you're trying to accomplish as you build a health and fitness plan that works for you. And that's pretty much it. That's scale fluctuations in a nutshell. Most of the time it's water weight fluctuation, and it shall pass if you just keep following the U plan or whatever that is that works for you. So don't react, be mindful, be aware, and remember, mindfulness and awareness precedes action. And so if you're just aware of what's going on, you'll just keep acting in a way to become that person that you're looking to be. And that's it. So that's what I got on today's episode of the How to Get Lean series, and it's all about scale fluctuations. And I'm thinking I need to do a video on how to go out and socialize and really enjoy it, and how to look at it as an experience, and how to make some considerations, trade-off substitutions with your food and drink, so you can always feel like you can go out and enjoy the presence of others and your food and drink while still getting lean. So let me know in the comments if you want to see that one, and I'll plan it. I can even walk you through how I look at menus and how I make those considerations. Okay, that's it. No longer be attached to the scale emotionally. All right, later.